Unfiltered with Ndongo Gashane and Daniel Kariuki.
Indeed, it is unfiltered. And when it is unfiltered, nothing is off the table. We discuss things as they are. And today we are going to discuss what is happening around the country, the issues of lies on fuel, what's happening. We have seen the president talking about reducing or removing some of the VAT on fuel a day before increasing with 40 shillings. We are going to discuss more about that. And we're also going to discuss things about whether our country has become the goons' paradise. We have seen both the opposition and the government accusing each other on this and others. But one thing I know, I have never allowed myself to host this show alone.
Are you sure? Last Thursday I was not around.
Yes.
I was out on assignment. But today I'm back. I was following up on the address by the president at the County Assembly of Nairobi.
Yes,
so it was on Thursday last week. So I was not around. But Gashane handled the things very well, away from the fact that he says he does not want to host it alone.
The Gashane way.
The Gashane way. But today we are very glad to have Simeon Ogonda. He was here. And we told you, we promised you to invite you again.
Yes,
and we have done that.
We have kept our promise.
As we keep our promises.
Yes.
So welcome to Unfiltered, as Kashane put it. And the last time you were here, you realized we don't filter.
Exactly.
And actually that day I remember we were discussing matters ODM. Because they were having a national delegates conference the following day.
Yes.
And it happened, by the way. And some things that you talked about here
came to pass.
Because there's really no secret to the patterns of human action.
There are no secrets to it.
Human beings are very predictable.
It is very evident. You predicted them and it happened. Because there's something you talked about if Sifuna wanted to be wanted to be like Raila Odinga, the late Raila Odinga. He should move and form his party. Or he fight from within.
Or he fights from within and then takes a huge part of that party with him as he leaves.
And it seems like it is working for him because he's still in the party and now the Linda ground seems also to be splitting in matters to do with the zoning.
But you know that split is not because of Sifuna. It is because of other factors. What he needs to do now, because he has decided to fight from within, he needs to make the fight real. That means he needs to set his own agenda. And that agenda needs to be very clear. You see, when LDP had an agenda, before they left KANU and became LDP, the agenda was clear. We are okay with a presidential candidate, but not one handpicked by KANU chairman.
Yes.
And when KANU chairman did not listen, they left. Even people that KANU never thought would leave.
They left.
And they left because the late Raila Odinga articulated an agenda they could follow. Right now, I don't feel Sifuna has articulated an agenda that the skeptics and the moderates would follow. That's why they are sticking to what they know, what is comfortable. That's why they would rather fight for zoning than think of another political future outside ODM. Because at least zoning, Baba used to take care of his people. If he liked you, he would campaign for you. And you would have no worries about the nomination.
But right now, Baba is not there.
Exactly.
So who will fight for them?
Well,
that's the reason they are saying no. Don't bring any other party if we agree.
In the laws of nature, the simplest organisms survive the most. And when we say survival of the fittest is not always the complicated ones. The ones you see shouting and speaking to the public, like they're the ones who understand Nyanza politics or Kenyan politics, most of them will be swept away by simpler organisms that have learned how to adapt in the post-Raila era. Some are still in the Raila era, while most of us have left that era.
Of course, today we are
calling simple organisms.
Simple organisms. They are human beings who are able to run simple campaigns. If they run simple campaigns professionally, they will win. Why? Because they're bringing new ideas to the table.
Yes.
people are not, go to the ground, ukisikiza ground, people are not for this zoning idea.
Yes.
Because zoning has been historically used, especially in Nyanza, to protect weaker candidates who are seen to hold a higher national profile.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. You would find somebody like our current, Kisumu's current governor, Anyang' when he was ODM Secretary General in 2007.
Right.
He told ODM, either you let me go campaign in my constituency during the nomination, or give me a direct nomination so that I can focus on ODM's national
agenda. True.
Now, there were many people like him who ended up getting direct nominations as a result.
So you're saying that it is a way of ensuring that those national leaders come on board to sell the party nationally.
More like sacred cows.
Yeah.
but what's the future of ODM now, given that, okay, when I talk about ODM, I mean the leader ground.
In the ground.
Because
the one that is in the broad base.
Yeah, these people are crying. The national chairman and the Homa Bay governor,
Gladys Wanga, and also Junet Mohammed.
The power man.
Let's be fair to the president. He knows how to plan his politics. He has made his partners feel uncomfortable in their own house. It takes skill to do that. And now, either they fight for zoning or accept that they would have to field newer candidates to battle UDA's candidates. Why? Because if they come with their old tired candidates and UDA comes with the newer candidates, the pitch might the football pitch might flip on ODM.
But I don't understand why are they fearing zoning based on your analysis? Why do you think the likes of Kinawanga and Oburu and why are they insisting on zoning as opposed, because if
there are some ODM members of parliament like Millie Odhiambo and the rest who are not afraid of zoning.
That's why I'm telling you, there are those MPs who have been performing on the ground.
The performers. No?
They are sure of themselves. In fact, I saw Millie Odhiambo post at some point that she posted a list with several UDA candidates and some in her constituency. She said, I welcome the competition. The more the merrier. That is the picture of somebody who is sure of themselves. But one thing, if you look at the national chairman for ODM, she must be worried that if ODM ends up with fewer numbers in parliament, at a time when UDA is aggressively recruiting in the region, then they will not have a higher bargaining capacity.
Parliamentary power.
They're
going to lose the parliamentary power.
But you see, ODM has always survived based on its parliamentary power.
True. Yes.
They used to try legislate within the house, and if that became impossible, then son of Ramogi would legislate outside the house. He will legislate on the street.
Bonasi, when you come from Nyanza,
yes,
we have Siaya, we have Kisumu, we have Migori, we have Homa Bay. Which other county?
Migori.
The Ruo Nyanza.
Then that would be 4 counties.
4 counties. Based on your analysis, and I believe you are coming from your home stretch,
yes.
How is the situation there? Are people pro-government, or do you think this issue of the one-term agenda has reached those other sides?
I'll give you an example to better illustrate my point. You remember in late 2021, when Kieleweke and Tangatanga were battling for the heart and soul of Central Kenya,
yes,
there was a lot of hooliganism. Goonism was rife. People were saying, looks like the center has shifted from Kondele to Githurai. You know why that was the case?
Yes.
Normally, when the party or coalition in power is unsure of how the ground treats them, they tend to discourage the opposition having a voice in that place. So if you see the same thing happening in Nyanza right now, it means that those who wield state authority and exercise it for the common good are uneasy by what the ground is saying. The ground is saying, come on, we are not settled in this.
So which ground are you talking? Are you talking about Luo Nyanza, Bwana Simeon?
That's the question you asked,
the information we have from the leaders who hail from that region, and Kariuki bear me witness, is that region is 2-term, period. And there's nothing else to discuss.
So why are they afraid of zoning? I mean, why are they insisting on zoning? Number one, why are there goons beating up opponents? I don't have to beat you if I know I can defeat you in an election, right? I don't have to cause chaos if I know I have capacity.
Yes.
And why are people, because I was in another show just 2 days ago, and callers were telling us that they do not like zoning because zoning leads to weaker candidates
Yes.
getting into positions of authority. And in the legislative agenda of this nation, if any region has weaker bargainers, they eventually lag behind.
Yeah.
People sometimes overlook this, and it is very critical that we start to be more intentional with it.
Yes.
One, when issues are being discussed in parliament and there is no bill presented that affects issues to do with a particular part of the country,
Yes.
based on what they produce, how they socialize and so on, then in the end you find that that region after 5 years feels left behind, even if development has been taken there, because development has not addressed the local issues. That's why sometimes you feel northern Kenya or northeastern Kenya, they feel left out because some of their MPs are not as vibrant in parliament as expected.
Yes.
But when you look at Nyanza, that has not always been the case. And the fear right now is the same faces must subject themselves to competition if there's going to be a fair playing ground. And because of this reality, you cannot tell with certainty that one faction among the factions vying for the heart and soul of Luo Nyanza, that one faction has already won. If they had already won, he wouldn't be there 24 so many days a week, a month.
Well, that
And,
then,
and this goes both for Luo Nyanza and Kisi Nyanza and other parts of Western Kenya.
Now the issue to do with ODM imefikia hapo.
Yes.
Huyu ametaja kitu to do with goons. It's you're the one
Yes,
actually
I see him talking about
who
goons in
mentioned
Goon.
about goons interfering with the meetings of the opposition leaders and also other leaders who seem not to be aligned to the broad-based government.
Yes.
Is Kenya becoming a goons paradise from where you sit?
From where I sit, fortunately or unfortunately, this has often been the case. It's not a new phenomenon. And where am I saying?
But right now it seems it's actually becoming too much.
Nah.
Not really.
You were here in 2007.
Oh.
You were here in 2002, 1997. Since multi-party started, one of the driving forces of political participation has always been how people are able to mobilize goons for short-term political advantages. And these short-term political advantages often damage institutions.
Right.
And the reason why we are seeing it now so obviously is because we've seen how police get paralyzed whenever it is a goon situation. So right now I walk outside that gate and somebody roughs me up,
Yes.
and the police identify that person, it is straight to court.
Sure.
But assuming I'm a high-profile individual, and that happens, and the people who beat me are associated with another rival, all of a sudden the police is paralyzed. They cannot act as fast. Why? Because goons cause systemic failure. If we go back to history, in 1992, in fact, when the political serialization of those events of 1992 were done through the analysis of the YK
92.
92 campaigns,
Which the president was part of.
yes, they said themselves, the Young Turks said that they had seen Ford coming out strongly, and the main thing they needed to do was decapitate Ford. So they would intentionally cause violence in Ford strongholds to minimize its capacity to mobilize
And influence.
and influence. And once that happened, one of the things that became possible to change or to tweak was how the government got its legitimacy. First, the government demonstrated that places where it controlled, there was peace.
Okay.
So they made the opposition a violent entity. Just like
They
across-
labored.
they were given a new court, the court of violence. The same way in our neighboring country,
Yes.
when Robert Chagulani Bobi Wine was campaigning, there was always violence around his campaign. So people started associating his political meetings with violence. Even though he was not the one causing the violence The violence was being caused by the system.
Yes.
In Kenya, and if you look at 2026, heading into next year's election, this phenomenon is only going to be perfected, especially in places where political factions do not have an absolute control. Places where they have absolute control. You are not going to find goons in Eldoret. Not because Eldoret is peaceful,
But because the powers that we have control,
they have control
in that region.
Exactly. You are finding goonism in Central right now because neither DCP, nor Jubilee, nor UDA can claim that they control the region.
That region.
Yeah. So when you see the emergence and the infiltration of these elements, it's because the rent-seeking nature of the political class implies that they have to look for security in violence.
But who do we blame? Because reasoning to the cabinet secretary in charge of Interior, Kipchumba Murkomen,
Yes.
he seems to suggest that it is the opposition that is actually doing this for sympathy. And because of course this is a political, this country is all about politics, and even the opposition can actually manufacture their own goons so that they can blame the government and instead so that they can also get the sympathy. But do we blame the government or do we blame the opposition on this issue of goonism?
I don't think it's about who to blame. It's about understanding that goons short-circuit the system. It's about systemic failure. It's about the police not being able to effectively investigate crimes. Reason being, the crime is associated with political events. Now, when Kipchumba Murkomen blames the opposition, we have to look at two factors here. First, he's not going to blame the government that he serves.
Definitely.
Even when the police lob tear gas,
Yes.
he can criticize them mildly, but he has more authority when he writes them letters and tells them, stop doing this. But now, when you take an issue and politicize it, you're effectively running away from responsibility. So, for example, when you are the internal security minister, cabinet secretary, and you've already declared that the opposition is seeking sympathy. Somebody was beaten in a cafeteria. The CCTV camera showed the beating. How long have those investigations gone for you to assume that the person who was being beaten organized his beating? And it was thorough.
Yes.
It was thorough by the way because he was admitted.
Yeah, so that's number one. It's about systemic failure, and the systemic failure arises when even those in authority tend to feel so helpless about their own predicament. You are an entire cabinet secretary for internal security. You've already declared the other side guilty. Where is their court of law?
Yes.
If already the public opinion where you addressed the issue already is being asked to believe in what the internal security CS says, and the internal security PS as well. His name has been drawn into this by the Embakasi East member of parliament.
And even the senator for Vihiga himself.
Of course, yeah. Well,
actually, the opposition has put it squarely on the interior CS, the president, the interior CS, and the PS.
Exactly.
And Simeon, don't you think that it is a bit hypocritical of the CS to say that, to blame the opposition, whereas, like for instance in Kikuyu constituency, where the former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua was to address a rally, we could see, because I covered the event alongside Gashane, we could see police officers throwing tear gas, shooting in the air, trying to disperse the crowds. Don't you think it is hypocritical of the CS? Because tear gas is with the police.
Yes.
The police works for who? The government. Now, when you put it on the opposition that the goons are courtesy of the opposition, are you saying that the opposition has managed to go into the government and take police officers to come to disrupt their own meeting? Exactly.
That's why I'm saying systemic failure comes when authority itself apportions responsibility and blame to the other side. Now, in the throwing of tear gas and the management of crowds, you definitely have to question police methods. At least to that level, you have left the CS, the PS, and the president out. You are simply asking the police, do you have to use tear gas? These people are meeting, they have freedom of assembly, they have freedom of expression. Do you have to use tear gas? Now, where the politicization happens is when you look at that policeman throwing tear gas as purely engaging the people in activities that support government. Now, the optics are already bad on the government side. One, the optics demonstrate anywhere the opposition goes, violence
has to
follows.
happen.
Now, it reinforces the same thing. It's an opposition politician, or it's an opposition-leaning politician in Kisumu who was assaulted in Kisumu.
Yes.
In Kikuyu constituency, it is the opposition rally which was targeted. And because you don't see this thing targeting government events, you eventually look at it through the political lens and say the state is short-circuiting the very system it is supposed to run smoothly. And that's why I'm saying when systemic failure happens, goons thrive. And like Gashani said, we become a goon paradise, even when we tend to think of ourselves as very mature, responsible citizens.
But Simeon, I'm wondering, because are you saying that the governments, regardless of who is in charge, does not change? Governments do not change. Because look at it this critically. In the former administration of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, one of the main reasons that President William Ruto garnered very huge and many votes was because of this issue of being seen as if he is being targeted by the state. We had seen some of his allies, including former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, when he was his staunch ally, being arrested on a Friday, then paraded in court on Monday. And this helped President William Ruto gain a lot of sympathy from the electorate. So are you trying to say that the government then do not learn? Because why are they giving the opposition the much needed?
They don't change their tactics of operation.
No. It's a very simple. It's a very simple scenario. The moment you render state offices paralyzed and can no longer respond to areas and issues under their jurisdiction, what happens is people start to form their own quote-unquote security committees. These security committees, goons, operate with different rules. They do not look at the constitution. They do not look at any act of parliament governing law and order. They just look at their opponent as somebody who does not need to be walking. Or if they're walking, they walk in fear. So you see, at some point, the opposition learns the game. After all, it's 14 months to the general election, right? You want to tell me they're going to allow themselves to be pushed around all this time?
What are they going to do?
They're also going to mobilize. And how are they going to mobilize? They are going to develop counter narratives to what the government is presenting. If the government is saying that the opposition are violent, let's see how they react when a politician leaning to government is targeted with the same type of violence they meet on us. Or let's see when roadblocks start coming in. You've already seen opposition politicians starting to threaten mass action.
Yes.
If you look at 2017, especially 2017, when the line between opposition and government was so clear and so wide, the opposition started as early as 2015 to demand for electoral reforms because they knew the government already had an upper hand in the system. So what did they seek to do? Destabilize that system. And between 2015 and 2017, it was
all politics.
It was all
nothing was working.
The opposition had learned how to also use violence. Only their violence was in the form of street protest. And they
actually went for the streets when they were calling for the electoral reforms.
Exactly. So now, in this case, the opposition is going to say, if they don't want us to campaign in an organized manner,
they also not going to campaign in an organized manner.
They are going to campaign in a disorganized manner. And they can campaign through mass action. And mass action is a goon's paradise.
Also.
Yes.
So what the opposition is also calling for is also another way of entrenching the goon paradise.
Indirectly, yes. And that's what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
Since 1992, since multi-party politics came, we have been sinking into this worst side of us whenever we feel our political arguments no longer hold water. And then when we deny the other party that has arguments people want to listen to, then that party also forms its own way to respond. Remember, even when political space in this country was shrunk to the minimum, in 1986, was it 1986 or thereafter? The church leaders and church elders of this country came up and said we need a conference to discuss our constitution.
Yes.
And the government was like, now how do we fight church people? They had already beaten, or politicians were either in jail or in exile.
Yes.
And so the religious leaders pulled this conversation past 1992. When they needed the electoral reforms changed from 1995, when they realized if we go to 1997 with this election, Moi would still have an upper hand. It was no longer the religious leaders, it was the civic leaders. And I think the face of Kivuta Kibwana at that time was very prominent. It was only after parliamentarians snatched victory from them and came up with the IPPG.
That is the 1996.
1996. It was
Yes,
before the
1996,
1997 general elections.
Yes.
And if you heard what the late Raila Odinga said when he was alive, that had they not changed the period for counting the votes during the December rains, Kibaki would have won.
Yes, in the 1997,
in the 1997 general election. So you find that goons eventually give way once both sides have tested their strength. Even in 2022,
yes,
in Central, goons started giving their way after the government realized all this excessive violence is actually making people not to like us more. Right now, we haven't tested that theory yet. Even in Kikuyu, we haven't tested that theory that that violence against Gachagua is actually earning him more. But the day the government will realize fighting Gachagua is making him win more, they'll stop.
But now, you know what is risky? Well, you've talked about previous incidences and administration using goons being seen even in the previous administration. But in this administration, the police are sometimes guarding these goons. They're actually mixing up with the goons. So don't you think that is very risky when the goons see that they are having protection of
from the police,
from the police? And don't you think we might be headed the Haiti way and you find that these goons become so powerful that even the police or the government will have to sit down with them and negotiate on how they are going to move forward?
I think we
because I want to believe that's how it started in some countries that we have seen.
And even some cases like the outlawed Mungeki sects and the Chinkoros of this world.
Yes.
You know, they started that they were being used by some politicians.
Yes.
And when they were done with those groups, because they were structured, they entrenched themselves to an extent that they started collecting taxes.
Yeah.
So I think that's what
that's what I'm insinuating, that we might see them now. For instance, there are cases that I've had and witnessed, especially in the Kikuyu incident, that when they know that there will be political
protection,
political events, and again that there will be a showdown.
Yes,
that's where now even they come in and they start closing, or rather blocking roads and start demanding money from. We actually had several people complain.
Yes.
There was a driver who was coming from, I think was
from Mombasa.
To Juba, transporting sugar. There was another one who was complaining of they have destroyed all the tires of the lorry, and there were more than 10 of them. The calculation of each tire, it was amounting to almost 350,000. Why? Because the driver did not have money to give them. So that's what we are talking about.
Yes.
We start seeing now there are two
And
entities.
that's happening now.
Yes.
And we are some 14 or 15 months to the general election.
Yes.
So are we slowly sliding into anarchy? Or
Yes, we always have to be very careful when we short circuit, especially the security infrastructure of our country. The good thing about Kenya is that the security superstructure is so clearly defined that those who hold monopoly of violence is the state. When I talk of monopoly of violence,
yes.
those who hold the guns.
Yeah.
The places we want to compare Kenya with, like Haiti, guns get into the hands of gangs so easily.
Yes.
Here, even when we mention Mungiki, Chinkororo, which one else? There are so many.
There are many.
There used to be many in their vibrant days. Baghdad boys and
Yes.
They never really fought with guns. That's why when it came time to silence them,
It was easy.
it was easy. Even Sabaot Land Defense Force that had some guns could not match the armed forces. So we have to be, at least we have to temper our criticism in that area.
Yes.
But we have to understand that if we keep emboldening goons to act outside the law, then one thing we are denying our country is accountability. We are denying its civic safeguards. By denying its civic safeguards, I mean we're denying people the rights that they are guaranteed by the Constitution. And by doing so, we are making people feel like if they have to talk, then they must prepare themselves as well. Imagine a situation where I know I'm coming to Unfiltered,
Yes.
so I have to make sure my people are at the gate, just in case.
You have about could come 50 people.
50 people are at the
Guarding
gate,
you.
just in case. No, they're not guarding me, but they're
Yes.
just there.
In
In case I say something and somebody tries to come down there.
And they'll be there to defend you.
Exactly. And then when we deny accountability, we are simply saying the security elements that have the monopoly of violence are no longer able to put sufficient fear on goons to not be this disruptive. And third, we deny ourselves stronger institutions. We are simply saying a cabinet secretary can stand up and blame the opposition for violence, yet he has all the authority to
And he has
stop
not
it.
even arrested anybody, any of
Yeah,
the opposition
he-
leaders.
You remember most security ministers in Kanu and Kibaki's time? They would stop the violence and then say, so and so did it. Michuki would stop it and then come and say who was starting it.
Yeah.
So anytime you wanted to start it, you felt like that guy will do something. So you look at some of these actions and you realize they are being perpetuated by people short-circuiting our system, causing deliberate systemic failure, which over time can morph into gangs now saying, let's get guns. And if they get their hands on guns, the police will see a tough time because they will be the only target. They're the only other people with guns. And so to prevent that from ever happening, we have to have a society where, first of all, our civic safeguards are non-negotiable. What I say does not have to be the reason why I get a beating,
Yeah.
especially when the courts of law are there. That we are accountable for whenever violence takes place, whether it is in opposition or government stronghold or a neutral area. Accountability must be there. And that institutions cannot act helpless.
The institutions cannot help.
Can't
The institution of
helpless.
the Director of Criminal Investigations, the National Police Service,
Exactly.
the judiciary.
In another conversation, my fellow debaters were saying that those who beat Senator Osotsi are a flight risk, so they have to be kept in jail for more days. But those who caused the petroleum crisis we are having somehow are not a flight risk. And I told them the very definition of flight risk is somebody with resources and can run away.
Yeah, can actually change things. And that actually
Exactly.
brings us to
So,
that issue
What
of
a
fuel.
juxtaposition.
My juxtaposition is this.
Yeah.
When we are going to argue
Yes.
that well-resourced individuals are no threat when they steal, but people who are not well-resourced are a threat, we're also short-circuiting the system because it means we are going to pick goons who do the things that we want to use as an example to present our case. But we are not really stopping them for the sake of security, then you're simply saying that those who are if you are escorted by the police, quote unquote, to go cause violence, you are safe. You are doing government's work. Then we will not stop the goons. And in 2032, we will be having this conversation again.
Now let's talk about that issue to do with fuel. We've said flight risk, those who have caused the fuel crisis. Them, they seem to be protected in a way. What is happening in the country on issues to do with fuel?
Simple. Capitalism.
Yeah.
In Kenya, it's capitalism. It's the lowest and most depraved form of capitalism. It's cronyism, fueled by access. And I'll give you an example from what I heard Ndindi Nyoro describe on Citizen the other day. He said this, that in 2022, when G2G came, there was a so-called sacred cow, Gulf Energy, that was recruited for the G2G platform, right?
By the Kenyan government.
By the Kenyan government. At that time, everybody who was in government was happy about it. The original opposition was unhappy about it. Why?
Which was led by the late Raila Odinga.
Exactly, the Azimio wing. They kept on saying that, one, it made the shilling weaker, because that's the time when the shilling left 121 and went all the way to 150 something. Right? That it was opaque. How did they choose this Gulf Energy? How, why, and so many things. It did not really reduce the price of fuel, was their other argument, right? Now, all these arguments, you realize they are people facing. It made the opposition at that time feel like they were fighting for the people. In fact, people are like, man, this Raila Odinga, he lost an election the other day and he's back on the streets. Who need to wait? Anatupenda sana. But at the core of that argument was one simple fact, that it served private interests. And why am I using Ndindi Nyoro as an example? Because he also admitted the same by saying that after the protests, another company was introduced. This new company was now called BE Energy. And what he said was that the new player was added after the broad-based arrangement came into existence.
So I think I'm joining the dots.
Yeah, where the interest is coming in.
So now, look at it this way. The former opposition that was now in government did not criticize and ask how BE Energy was recruited, because they knew how. They proposed it, at least according to what Ndindi Nyoro was saying. But then the new opposition now, the united opposition, what I sometimes like to call the disunited opposition.
Hey, okay, you tell us why.
I'll tell you why. The new united opposition is now criticizing it. Why? And they will not say they will not say the whole thing.
Yes.
Now, one thing they will say is the same thing.
Yes. They actually had the press conference yesterday.
It has not really reduced it has actually led to the skyrocketing of
Prices.
the prices. That's the first thing they've said. They've said it cripples economic growth, which is true. They have what else have they said? They have said so many things.
They have said that it is president who is a benefactor in all this.
Exactly. They have said that the president is benefiting. They may not have said it directly in some cases, but they keep on pointing to that direction.
No, they said actually directly. I had former deputy president say that he's getting 5 shillings
Per litre.
Per litre.
Yeah.
So now you see, they are also saying the same thing, that it is shrouded by private interest.
Yes, private interest.
Which tells you one thing: it is bad when we are not benefiting. You see?
But now Kenyans are not benefiting.
No. That's
so
what I'm
are you
saying.
saying that opposition is only crying because they are not
benefiting
part of that whole program?
Because if that was the case, then, with the exception of the energy CS, ODM should have still made a statement against this arrangement. If they were staying true to their democratic ideals as a center-left political party, a center-left political party criticizes itself when it is in government, which means it can criticize anyone else in government. Center-right political parties do not criticize themselves. Now, because the current ODM is not criticizing itself, it means they are happy with the BE energy being added.
And the former deputy president was not against the G2G when he was in power.
When Gulf Energy, and you know what he said, that President Ruto only used a small part of his brain
To think through.
Yeah, exactly, to think through.
And try to bring in something that is
said-
going to help this
he,
country.
He said what Uhuru could not do in 2 years.
Yes.
Ruto used just a small part of his brain, and
To deal with the issue of fuel crisis.
and you saw him speak the other day.
Uh-huh.
Now that the shoe was on the other foot,
Now he says 5 shillings per litre.
but he even knows the amount. So it tells you one thing, that our
And even Dede Nyoro was also in government. Remember, he was the chairman for the
Exactly.
budget.
Yeah, and in fact, when you have used Dindi Nyoro as an example. Well, he
Yes.
was he was the chairman of the budget committee. He said that the subsidies that had been put by the former president Uhuru Kenyatta, that the current regime is the one that is paying those subsidies.
yes, that he said.
He said that.
Yes.
And he actually said, as the chairman of the budget committee, I know this. Right now, we can see again the president talking about 6.2 billion as subsidy. And in fact, the cabinet secretary for treasury has reduced the VAT percentage to 8% from 13%, if I'm not wrong. In fact, there is a question about does the CS have the
those
authority,
powers and authority.
the powers, because the law
It's a prerogative
says
of the
he
parliament.
can reduce, but again subject to parliament approval. And I don't think we've seen it happen in parliament. The parliament are approving this.
Exactly. Our opinions, the opinions of our political leaders regarding the issue of fuel depends on their fear of losing out. The moment they fear losing out, they propose theories to the public. Now the public is forced to pick a side. Right? And when the public is hurting, they will pick a side that is communicating their pain.
Yes.
Right now, the opposition is communicating their pain.
There is-
The same way.
But you are saying they're not genuine.
They're not genuine. I'm saying they're not genuine because the same people in opposition today were in government when
And they are the
Abiy
ones,
was-
they're the same ones who are clapping and
Exactly. So that's-
complimenting the idea
Yes.
of having
So
the
that's
G
what I'm saying.
to G.
The cronyism is so sickening that the people, if Che Guevara would come back today as a Kenyan, the people would follow him. Because you can see all this mess being propagated by people short-circuiting the system and then claiming that they are acting in the greater good. The famous philosopher Aristotle said that those who are entrusted with authority must always act in the greater good. And those who do not act in the greater good are unjust. The interests of the common man in Kenya today is not served by high fuel prices. Now, there is a new company that is now marketing. You should know, as early as 10th, 11th, for those of us who travel across this country regularly, there was already shortages of fuel.
Yeah.
Now, these shortages of fuel were not happening in the other months. Like there's no other, there are a few other months that you've had the government running out of fuel before the 15th. But this time, most of them were simply keeping that fuel to wait for the prices to
It was
increase.
actually holding.
They were holding it. And KTN did a news article about having gone to confirm
Yeah.
that the country actually have sufficient fuel. And they also wondered, why is it not in the pump? Some people already knew this was about to happen. And if you want to look at that as capitalism, maybe we are just being kind on what it is. It is cronyism. It is selling political access. Many people already counted billions even before 1 liter of that oil was sold. And not because they made the deal, but because they already knew the prices would be increased. And that's why I'm saying, when you look at this from a political angle, it does not serve the development agenda of this republic when we have parochial interests determining our macroeconomic drivers. Fuel is such an important element of our growth that it should not be left to chance.
It's actually, I think, part of, I think should be considered, or is it considered part of the security mechanism? Because I don't think nothing can happen in this country without the factor of fuel.
Maybe I can make a bold statement. This is, after all, the Unfiltered, right?
Yes.
We
Of
should
course.
one day have a government that is bold enough to say that crimes of this nature should be considered economic sabotage and therefore treated the same way as a treason trial.
Yeah.
And if possible, these people should not go to a regular court.
They should go to the,
They should be court-martialed.
like what happens in Uganda.
No. That what happens in Uganda happens in Uganda. What will happen in Kenya will be like this. You are entrusted with getting fuel
Yes.
to 55 million people.
Yes, Kenyans.
Then you want to tell us, the 55 million, that somehow it's going to cost 40 shillings more.
And
With a
then you
straight face.
Then you subtract. Then when you hear what is happening around the country, then you say it's 10. But then-
Sifuna said it well. Zakayo amechukua 40 akaturudishia 10. So you see, they are giving the opposition strength it may not have had even in the first place.
Yes.
By simply acting this way.
But I wanted to ask you this.
Yes.
We saw a day after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority announces an increment of 40 shillings for diesel and 28 shillings for petrol. Then President Ruto comes and says, I hear what's happening. I have decided to reduce the fuel, the VAT from 8, is it from 16 to 8%? But then they had
From
reduced
13
from 13 to
yes,
8%.
to 8, yes.
And he says even the paraffin that the border guys use.
use
use
paraffin.
So they use paraffin. I didn't know that. But let's put the genius of the president and his paraffin assertions to one side and ask ourselves this question. Huh? This question is very important. Alianza kusikiza ground ama did he suddenly become clever after the announcement for 40 came?
Yes.
Was this adjustment political or was it based on sound economic judgment? If we are going to be pinched at the pump, shouldn't it be such a bold decision
Yes.
of us saying, I know you would want fuel to sell at 100,
Yes.
but it is just not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of taking food from a child, then when they start crying, and sequence serious.
Is it the hero
Na
syndrome?
umeshauma kidogo.
Ushauma kidogo.
In fact, hata si kidogo. Umeongeza na 40, wamelielia, umerudishia
Ngoja,
10. Is it?
Kuuma kidogo meaning, by the time he was making that announcement,
He had gotten something.
several 10 shillings had already gone. Billions had already been counted.
Yes.
So we have to look at.
So
this.
you are saying it was political kind of statement.
It was a political statement because if it was economic,
It would have prevented
is
the
the
aircraft
energy
from,
is the Energy Regulatory Commission existing outside this country?
It is still here.
He could have easily called them and told them.
I know you're going to regulate
I
Yeah.
know you're going to regulate, but this figure is too high.
It's too high.
What can the government do
Yes.
to reduce it?
The-
So if we didn't cry, saizi hiyo 10 bob ingechukuliwa.
But again, there are reports that there could be someone who wants to move to court to stop the implementation again, arguing that the notice by the cabinet secretary, I think it was notice number 70, that it was not taken to parliament, and so seeking to stop again. Could it be maybe the government is also playing games?
See, when I said it's political, maybe what I neglected to do was to explain why I said that.
Yes.
The fact that it was not procedural. If he announced it, it was not supposed to be announced to us. It was supposed to be announced as a proposal to the parliament of this country to consider, because our parliamentarians have been given 3 assignments by the constitution and by the people: representation, oversight, and legislation. One, they should be oversighting this petroleum debacle very, very closely, so that these scandals we are hearing don't appear. Secondly, representation. They must have known the pinch would come the moment this thing was announced. So they should have sought their voice to be heard as well. And then third, legislation. they should have legislated the moment it was mentioned. They should, if the request was not made to them, they should have followed up with the executive. You guys mentioned this. When are you bringing it for consideration? But the fact that none of these actors have acted leads us to mention the fact that maybe the president found a good political tool and he did not want it to go to waste.
Or what if he wants to say that, you see, mimi niliamua na I also announced, lakini sasa the courts have said, because if, for example, the president did not follow the due process, ultimately the courts will agree with the petitioner that the process was not followed. And then the president says, oh, sasa wacha walipishwe 40 shillings because mimi I announced and somebody went to court. Is he trying to, you see, doing what we call mind games?
That's what I'm saying. If this 10 shillings reduction was to be believed, it should have been done in a procedural manner.
In a procedural manner.
They should have sent a notice to request to Parliament. Parliament would have discussed it by now because this is an urgent matter, and the people would have feedback by now. Except now, somebody is already going to court. How do we know it's not one of those oil marketers?
or even part of
their lobby groups.
The lobby groups, or even the part of the government, sympathizers and apologists.
Yeah.
Because probably that was not his intention. There's something else people have talked about, especially the critics of this administration.
Yes.
Something they call the hero syndrome or the savior mentality by the president. He makes sure that the fuel prices are hiked. Then comes now as the person who is now providing the solution. And we have seen there are so many instances. He's the one who actually established those fuel levy when he got into the office. And there are so many examples. You create a scenario where there is a problem, and when after people complain here and there, you present yourself as a savior. Isn't it a good strategy, political strategy?
They say it's a way of creating. It's a way of creating a problem, and then trying to find a solution for a problem that you created.
Isn't that's a good political strategy?
Of course it is. The big man syndrome is also a political philosophy in this country, and it started at independence when we decided to have an imperial presidency by giving it too much powers. When we returned it to an executive presidency after the exit of Moi and the coming of Kibaki, we were also still communicating that we want a presidential system. Now, presidential systems often function when the person who is the standard bearer for the entire republic only presents good news. If you look at Russia,
yes,
for example, you rarely find Putin announcing bad news. That is the job of Medvedev and the ministry, his security ministers and so forth. You'll never see Xi Jinping announcing bad news to the Chinese people. Did you ever see him announcing things about COVID? No. That was left for somebody else. So you look at the scenario that we are creating in Kenya, where the president comes in with what feels like very nice goodies, and those goodies are very much welcomed. By the time he leaves, you feel like he has done, he has led. He promised to lead. His leading.
That's leadership.
Exactly. But what we know is, and Okia Omtata said, that for him, removing this president will not be enough. We need to eliminate the system that makes us feel that development should be up to one individual. Okay? Once we remove that, then it wouldn't matter who is president, because everybody would have a say on how that government functions, and resources would be allocated when people are doing their job at the highest level. Not when the president says, let's reduce this by 10%, by 10 shillings.
So, of course, time has really gone. Maybe we should be having your parting shot. Where are we headed as a country?
And as you give your parting shot, you can also give us what you think about this Niko Kadi initiative.
Yes.
The country has given education to the youth. Do you think they're going to utilize that education in the ballot next year with all this that is happening?
My parting shot is going to be parting shot. I'll start with the youth and education part, and I'll weave that with Niko Kadi in.
Yes.
we have proven since the start of multi-party politics in this country, the second multi-party politics in 1990s, that as a country, we often don't let government dictate our choices at the ballot. That's why each government that comes in is always afraid that they will be voted out.
Yeah.
They end up overcompensating so that they avoid that fate. And now when you see Nico Kadi, you realize that government, remember Nico Kadi came just after the Nyota campaigns. Can you imagine after splashing all those hundreds of millions?
And by the way, we are not hearing about the Nyota fund anymore.
Realize this,
Yes.
after all the hundreds of millions were splashed, Nico Kadi comes with no budget and captures the attention of the nation. That has to get somebody who used over those millions to attract the public. They get worried. And that brings me to the youth of this country. The one tool that we can never fail to have in our toolbox is education. Because the Kenyan voter is now very well informed that you just need to put two issues in front of them and they'll tell you which one is worth their attention. Which is why even organizations like the ones I lead are seeking to build the capacity of young people by sponsoring education for young people in high schools in my part of in Kisumu County. And through such programs, we are guaranteeing that democracy will always thrive in this country.
Yes.
That even when government believes it should be the ultimate authority on what good news is, the people will always remind them, but we were here before you. You were a citizen before you were president, and you'll be back to being a citizen. So we must not follow you because you say so. We follow you when you are making sense. And the only type of population capable of making that choice is an educated one. In conclusion, where are we going? We are headed straight into a hole if we do not arrest some of the challenges we have today.
Yes.
Goonism has to be arrested. Cannot be allowed to continue. Cronyism and the type of profiteering that we are allowing in our critical economic infrastructure must be stopped. Because otherwise, right now, there are people whose salaries and daily earnings have reduced significantly because of the fuel price alone. And finally, if politicians, especially in government, would like to win back their seats easily, they must not be seen to be emasculating the opposition everywhere. Because that's what they're doing. And the people have started seeing it. And that sympathy we are talking about, it will become clear when the opposition stops being disunited. That is when they give us a presidential candidate, and then we say, oh, so it is him or her and President Ruto. Then now, if the government targets that person, we'll be like, oh, so you are targeting your replacement. We won't let you. That is what I would like to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. We're always having a very good time when you're here.
I'm glad.
So thank you very much for giving us those insights, and definitely we look forward also to hear more from you. And you have actually learned about the show. It's unfiltered. You don't filter anything.
Yes.
And I love how you say this is unfiltered. So I'll say this. So thank you very much, Simon. And of course, thank you very much for watching. My name is Daniel Kariuki. Meet again on Thursday.
I'm Dungu Kashane. Tupatane next week on Thursday.
Unfiltered with Ndongo Gashane and Daniel Kariuki.